Welcome into Talk Illini here with Orange and Blue News over at the On3 Network. Go ahead and like, subscribe, do all that good stuff for us as we are going to get into a recap of Illinois' win over UT Rio Grande Valley, 87-73 for the Fighting Illini. And Sonny, I want to be positive in this recap because I do think there was a lot of good stuff that happened in this game, but I understand there are going to be a lot of people that have concerns coming out of this game. And I think we can definitely get to those, but let's start with the positives here with this team. Mihailo Petrovic, Andrej Stojakovic, the ability to get close to the basket and make some of those shots. I mean, in the second half, they were automatic from 2 point range, getting down there close to the basket. Illinois went on a 12-2 run there, kind of not super late, but a little late there in the first half, and that kind of was the lead that helped them kind of pull away and get this win here for them. But overall, some stuff we have to talk about. But the positives first. What were the positives you saw out of this game, Sonny?
I can combine the negative and the positive. This was a game where it was like a B- effort, probably, when you look at if you're judging what you saw on the TV screen today. But they scored 87 points. This team, the first 7 games of the year already, has scored 80-plus points. Illinois hasn't done that since the Flying Illini year. It's a team that even when you don't have a good shooting night, like this team, certainly from three-point land, was 8 for 30, shooting 26%, with you looking like you sleptwalk throughout that entire game, not hitting three-point shots. You talk about their efficiency close to the rim. They still scored 87 points. And in a lot of ways, to me, that's comforting. Amongst other things, if we're going to start with talking about positive things, it's got to start with Mihailo. You finally see the weapon that folks have been talking about what he can be for this basketball team. I've talked about it since he's been committed to the team. He provides a skill that nobody else on this team has. And even including Kylan Boswell, including Keaton Wagler, who of course are great players in their own rights. I stand by my statement that Mihailo Petrovic is the best pure point guard on this basketball team. Now, a lot of the other guys got a lot of attention, and all of it deserved. Don't get me wrong. The team got off to a hot start, and all of a sudden there's questions. Is Mihailo good? He's still hurt. Does he have a future with this Illini basketball team? I think tonight you saw that he absolutely not only has a future with this Illini team, but I think he's going to play a very important part of it.
Yeah, and they mentioned on the broadcast, like he's not practiced with the team as much as other players have, and so there's still not just an adjustment to American basketball, but also to this team playing overseas and everything. I mean, there are so many adjustments that he is going through right now. For him to go out and put up 12 and 4 and be 4 for 5 from the field for 1 3-pointer, 1 for 1 from 3-point, and go 3 for 3 from the free throw line, all in just 16 minutes of play. It's hyper efficient basketball. It's what you want to see out of a point guard. And I'm not going to say that we need to change the starting lineup or anything like that for him just yet, but I do want to see Mihailo Petrovic in there more, especially in the situations that we saw in this game where it was kind of just pass the ball around the perimeter until you can put up a shot type of deal. And I felt like we saw that a little bit more in this one. We'll talk more about that a little bit later, but Andrej Stojakovic, Mihailo Petrovic, Big Z had a good game in this one as well. He was disrupting things down low, doing a good job. But yeah, I mean, are there any other positives we want to bring up? I'm totally with you. You put up 87 points in a game where it felt like, I mean, in the first half, I looked down and I was like, man, they just did not play very well offensively in the first half. And I was like, oh, 40 points. Okay,
Yeah.
I guess that's not so bad. Anything else you want to bring up positive wise before we get into some of the more critical stuff?
Just get back to Mihailo real quick. 12 points and only 4 assists, but it very clearly could have been 10 assists. There's a lot of baskets where his teammates simply missed wide open jump shots. And again, that's why I like Petrovic for that role. When your team is slumping, when your team is struggling from shooting, like they did today, what Mihailo can do, and he did multiple times today, he set up Big Z for a dunk. He can attack the rim, and if he's got another cutter with him, he can set them up for an easy layup. And that's just another weapon that this team has that previous Illini teams didn't have. Last year it was either going to be Will Riley, Kasperi Siakis, maybe every now and then Tomislav Ivisic, who was going to be the best player on the team. 2 years prior, it was Terrence Shannon Jr. most nights, but it could also be Marcus Damask. But it was always going to be one of those two guys. On this team, it could be any one of 6 guys who could be the best player on any given night. And stuff like that is what's going to give opposing head coaches just absolute nightmares because they're almost impossible to game plan against. You can't say, take these 2 guys out and let the rest of them beat you because the other 3 guys can absolutely single handedly beat you. And that's why, the loss against Alabama hurts, certainly. But my feelings for this team, and now, granted, I understand the competition level today. I need to see more of it against good competition for Petrovic, but he's just added himself to that circle for me. And that makes me more confident, now that these guys are finally practicing together, finally playing together, that by the time the Big Ten season rolls around at the second half of December, that this team's going to be rolling.
For sure, for sure. And I mean, once you find the right rotations and put everything together the right way, too, I mean, that's something that Brad is obviously still looking for. And also, I loved when Mihailo came in. He pushed the ball right away every time he possibly could, and that's honestly what this team kind of needed there in the first half. They needed a little bit of a kick in the butt to get down the court, and I mean, not to get down the court. It makes it sound like they were lollygagging and stuff like that. They weren't lollygagging, but they just weren't playing with as much emphasis and maybe as much energy as you might think. It was kind of a sleepy Monday night. You just came off of a big game about a week ago. You had Long Island, and yeah, that one was really good, but you're kind of in
The
between
students
that
aren't
and
there. The students are
yeah, the
off on
students aren't
holiday.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a little bit just kind of relaxing night, and you could tell Brad wasn't happy with it. I mean, he put 9 different guys in there pretty quick. He was trying to light a fire under these guys. And then also, we do need to give Rio Grande Valley some credit. They were poking the ball away a lot. They were very handsy, and not handsy in a bad way, like they were creating penalties. They were just very handsy, getting the ball in there, getting the ball in passing lanes, and trying to pick it away as much as they possibly could. Some of that definitely on the Illini for needing to protect the ball a little bit more, but there was some good play by Rio Grande Valley out there. It's not like this team was just a bunch of schmucks or anything like that.
Oh, for sure. They made a fan out of me today. Like, props to their head coach. That's a team I'm going to monitor moving forward, and in particular, that head coach moving forward and see what his next stop might be. I hate to say it was a waste of time, but Saturday's game against Long Island, Illinois won by 40, very easily could have won by 60. I don't think you learned anything from that game.
Mm-hmm.
And unlike a lot of other Illini fans, I don't think I was ever necessarily stressed about this game. But at the same time, they always kept the score around double figures, right around 10. Not enough to let us get super comfortable, but never to the point where I felt like the game was in question. But the team never stopped hustling. They showed so much confidence shooting their 3-point shots. And they made, I believe, 40% of them today. Let me double check. Yeah, 11 of 26. They made 42% of their threes, combined with our lack of 3-point shooting. That's kind of shows you why, the final score was only 14 when the spread was 33. But you're absolutely right. That other team today is not a team. I don't think they're good enough for March Madness, but if they were there, I would be afraid to play them.
Yeah, definitely not a team you want to see in March Madness if they're playing with a lot of confidence and they've had a good season up until that point. I mean, they're 2-4, so they're probably not going to be a March Madness team. They'd have to get really hot here. But anything can happen in conference play, so we'll see what goes on there. But overall, this Illinois team tonight, I question some of the defensive strategy at the beginning of it with how hard they were going at screens, and that was another underrated piece of this Rio Grande Valley team is how they got around their screens and how much they use their screen action too. When Illinois was not switching on ball screens or off ball screens, they were doing a really good job of making Illinois pay for that. I didn't understand why we weren't. I didn't feel like they had anybody except for maybe the big man. What was his name? Baranowski, Bronkovic. He, I mean, yeah, you couldn't put like Kylan on him, right? He was just too strong for something like that. But I didn't feel like their guards were too much for Big Z to go up against, or maybe Mirkovic or something like that. I mean, yeah, they were quick, but you should have enough help and you should have enough length to be able to challenge those shots enough. And eventually they did change things. They started switching on screens a little bit more, but that was one area of the defense that I was kind of like a little questionable about there in the first half.
Yeah, I think the last 10 minutes of the Long Island game combined with the first 20 minutes of the game this evening wasn't the best effort when it comes to the defensive side of basketball. But what I really did like, JR, I don't know if you caught this right at the end of the game when they interviewed Brad Underwood, he called his team out on it. You know, he didn't make up any excuses. He literally said they played like doo doo. I believe that's a scientific term.
Yeah.
And he called
Also,
it.
the I can't cuss on TV term.
Yeah, right. He's probably using a different word in the locker room right now.
Yeah.
But he called this team just played really poorly defensively, and it's one of those where when you have bye games like this, you want to have points to learn from, and if anything good comes out of this game, like the fact that it wasn't another 40-point blowout, he can highlight those defensive efforts the next couple days and let them know, hey guys, you show what I'm seeing on tape. If you have this sort of effort in Madison Square Garden against the UConn Huskies, you're going to get 30-pieced yet again. If you want to play with the big boys, you need to learn to take it up a different notch. And, you're right. Maybe it's a level of competition combined with a crowd that wasn't really into it just because the crush wasn't there. But the atmosphere is going to be tenfold different on Friday at Madison Square Garden. That place, the UConn Huskies practically call home. It's going to be full of Husky fans. It's going to be a raucous environment. You need to get your effort up. You need to get your energy up. Otherwise, you're going to be in real big trouble.
For sure, for sure. And in this game, you had two of your best players not have their greatest game. Tommy out there, looks like he's still dealing with his injury a little bit. I would not be mad if Big Z got maybe a little bit more time in that UConn game. If we continue to see, a little bit of Tommy being a little bit slower like he was. Big Z had 18 minutes in this one, and Tommy had 22. I wouldn't mind seeing that flipped against UConn if we continue to see this kind of stuff. Not because I don't want Tommy to play, but at the same time, you got a long stretch of games coming up here. You have UConn, Tennessee. You're going to Ohio State. You have Missouri mixed in there as well. I think they have another big game in there that I'm blanking off the top of my head. But you have some big games coming up, and if you can get Tommy some time to rest a little bit more and make sure he's not injured, that's going to be important. And Kylan Boswell, he went 4 for 4 from the free throw line, so he hit his free throws, but only 1 for 5 from the field, 0 for 4 from 3. He had 4 personal fouls in this game. It was not Kylan's night out there.
Yeah, Kylan, I've kind of noticed a trend with Kylan. Like in the games against lower level competition, it seems like he's just more focused on setting the other guys up. He doesn't really take as many baskets or shots as he usually takes. And then when you play Texas Tech or when you play Alabama, and I'm assuming when you're going to play UConn on Friday, you're going to see Kylan Boswell, take 10 to 15 shots to be an enforcer, to put his head down and attack the rim. I don't know if this is like by design. This is a conversation that he's had with Brad Underwood. It's like, hey, be there on defense. And I think that's why he had the 4 fouls. I did like that. I think he was the one guy who was a little feisty when it came to the defensive end. And, sometimes he just got whistled for it. But I think against teams of this competition, Kylan is simply instructed, I don't know whether it's his own decision or something Brad told him, to get the other guys, let them do their thing, conserve your energy, just focus on the defensive end. And then when the big boys come into town, or when you play, the guys at the mecca of basketball, that's when you can see Kylan kind of take it up a different notch. But speaking of Tommy, I don't know what my level of concern is yet. Against Alabama, he was a spectator out there. Yeah, he really served no purpose. Against Long Island, he was a little bit better, but clearly not the Tommy that we're used to last year. Tonight, he was better. His box score looks pretty decent. 22 minutes, 10 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. But still, I feel like he's operating at maybe 70% of what he was last year. And, I try to keep it into perspective that when he was initially announced to be hurt, I heard he could be gone for anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks. I heard 2 to 4 weeks. And he could have been out a month. And he got back a lot quicker than that. And I have to keep that in mind. But I also have to remember that just because he's back on the court does not mean he's healthy. And to me, you can clearly see that he's not the player that he was last year. And whether that is conditioning, I didn't like the way he was boxed out a couple times. I think the other team was like very aggressive in wrestling him for the ball. And that just tells you like his conditioning, which we all know is the issue, just isn't there yet. But having said that, that's what makes me worried about Friday. Because if you don't have an 80-90% Tomislav Ivisic, then I think you're right with what you said. Then maybe Zvonimir and what he offers on the court. Now, granted, he has his bad games, but when you've got good Big Z, he might be the better Ivisic to have on the court against the Huskies on Friday.
Yeah, I thought Big Z was really good in this game. Had a plus minus of 20, 10 points, 3 for 5 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and he had 7 rebounds out there as well. So, from what I saw, and he was contesting shots. He had a block out there as well. I mean, and he was guarding on the perimeter okay too. It wasn't like he was getting beat consistently or anything like that. And they had some pretty speedy guards that honestly could have been beating him if he was out there too much. So I had no problem with Big Z in this one. It's more so just get Tommy the time he needs to rest, so that way he is not re-injuring anything, number one, or number two, over exasperating himself, because you're right, he probably is playing at like 70% right now, and it's good to get him the time so he can kind of get used to it and that stuff, but at the same time probably doesn't need any more than 20 minutes per game at this point, I would think. So only other guy I was going to bring up, and the box score is kind of misleading because I actually felt like he had kind of a good game, but it's never good to play 20 minutes and have 0 points out there. And that's Ben Humrichous, 20 minutes, 0 points, 0 for 2 from the field. Did have 8 rebounds. Got to give him credit for that. An assist, 2 blocks, and a turnover. What'd you make of Ben Humrichous out there?
Ben Humrichous has a target on his back since last year. And I thought maybe he could shed it a little bit this year, but he still seems to be the easy guy for Illini fans to point at, in particular when his shots don't fall. He was 0 for 2 today. Keaton Wagler was 1 for 6 from three-point land. Andrej Stojakovic was 1 for 5. Ben Humrichous is a completely different, and by that I mean better player than the version we saw last year. This year, he's not just boxing out, he's going up for rebounds. He's gained some strength. He's positioned himself to be in the right spot defensively more often than not. He's playing exactly like the 7th or 8th guy on a roster should. And so, yeah, when he misses his shots, I feel like every 1 3-point miss is like 5 3-point misses in a row for another player. People just get really, really upset when he misses his open shots. But I argue that that's his role. On this team, when he's on the court on the offensive end, if he's wide open, he needs to shoot that 3, because as long as he's shooting it, the defense has to spend one player guarding him at that 3-point line, which all of a sudden is one less player that they can send to an attacking Andrej Stojakovic or an attacking Mihailo Petrovic. Ben Humrichous opens up the lane for those type of players. And overall, his season 3-point percentage is still high. It's still decent. It's just when he has those games where, he is wide open and they don't go in. I think people have too much PTSD from last year.
BTSD? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, sure. That works too.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I am seeing a better Ben Humrichous this year. I just know that at some point that's going to be brought up. 20 minutes, 0 points scored. All right, let's also take it with a little bit of context and what his role is and everything like that too. So, all right,
0 points scored and still 10 plus 10 on the plus minus.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And 8 rebounds in there. You can't argue with that. He was a leading rebounder. Him and Keaton Wagler in this one. So
I want to talk about Keaton too before we wrap things up.
Yeah, go ahead.
A guy who did not have a good game. He missed a lot of open shots. He's a freshman. Composite 150. I think on 3 had him in the 200s. In a game where he didn't have a very good game, where he shot awful. Again, I mentioned 2 for 11 from the field. 1 of 6 from 3-point land. Only 3 out of 5 free throws. This freshman finished in 30 minutes, played the second most behind just Andrej Stojakovic, who played 31. In 30 minutes, he had 8 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal. I mean, the find that Keaton has become, even on his off nights, being able to contribute this much. And again, it's not just a box score. He passes the eye test too. I feel like it's a cheat code now, and it's becoming boring talking about what a fine Keaton was for Brad Underwood. But man, again, you talk about how deep this team is. That's just another example.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why he's out there starting. It's not because Mihailo is not good enough or anything, like that. Yeah, it's because Keaton goes in there and he performs and he does a good job when he's in there. And yeah, I mean, he was plus minus 18 in this one. He was right behind Zvonimir with the best plus minus on the team. So give him credit for sure. So. All right, well, I think that kind of wraps up the game here. I will echo your sentiment really fast at the beginning, Sonny, which is if you're going to have a game where Keaton Wagler is not great, Kylan Boswell is not great, Tommy's not great, Mirkovic was fine. Maybe not what we have come to expect from him. But if you're going to have a game where those guys, you all kind of say, not a great game for them, and you still score 87 points, we'll live with it.
Yeah.
We'll live with it and see what the UConn game brings us. So, speaking of the UConn game, you can catch us here afterward over at Talk Illini here with Orange and Blue News on the On3 Network. Make sure you like, subscribe, get recaps of all these games, big basketball and football, and you can find me, Sonny, Carson, covering it all here on Talk Illini. Sonny, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Big matchup on Friday against UConn. A huge litmus test. We're going to have a lot of coverage for you. We're going to preview that game as well. Maybe talk a little bit more of what Petrovic's role is on this basketball team moving forward. So again, a brand new channel. Make sure you're subscribed and make sure you like this video.
Very good. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. Have a good one.